Yeah, well, welcome everyone that's on so far, thank goodness, to our 8th mentoring session from the year and our last one for the year as well, which we'll say our goodbyes at the end of today. So today we've got Kate Hopley. She is the franchise manager, and most of you know, from Schnitz, and she was previously CEO of Spud Bar as well, and regional franchisor for Jim's Dog Wash. And she is the owner of Busy Box that writes operations manuals for the franchise businesses. And so at some stage, if you've been in franchising for a while, you'd definitely come across Kate. Kate used to also be in memberships at the FCA here as well, quite a few years ago. So today we're going to do question and answers together on franchisee induction, and thank you to Schnitz really for hosting today. So over to Kate to say hello to you all, but more importantly, if at any time you want to ask a question, just ask it or put your hand up or whatever you want to do rather than waiting till the end. Happy to take any questions at any time.
Awesome. Thank you, Helen. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. I'm very excited about today. Hopefully I can share some of my experience with you. I guess I've got a bit of varied experience from working with Jim's Dog Wash in the service industry, being a regional franchisor. So I had 2 regions. And I started with 4 franchisees and sold it with 14. And then being franchisor and CEO at Spud Bar for the last 12 years. So if you don't know Spud Bar, it's a small QSR with 23 locations at the moment. And most of the time I was the only full-time employee over the years. So franchise recruitment was something that you kind of juggled with everything else in the business, with operations, marketing, finance, strategy, you name it. And then moving into Schnitz since February. And I guess seeing franchise recruitment from a much bigger lens, and having a property department and marketing and just, all this new support that I'd never had before has been very exciting, but also a challenge working with other departments when, it used to be something that I just would go and do myself. Now there's a lot more systems and processes in place that goes into franchise recruitment and onboarding. So still setting up a lot of the processes in Schnitz as well, and kind of, really tweaking to find best practice.
Excellent. All right, so let's get started. Kate, what's the most critical part of the onboarding process for franchisees?
So what I find is the most critical part for franchisees is they're preparing them for the job ahead. So making sure that they've got the right understanding of what they're taking on, what they've bought, what the expectations are, what the culture is. It can seem really daunting, and it's a lot of information for them at the start. And what their perception is and what reality is can be 2 completely different things. So getting them aligned to the brand and making sure what you have actually sold them is how it is on a day-to-day when they enter into the business, which, can be always hard because we're dealing with people that, we may have only met a couple of times. They might have gone into, one of our stores. We do Discovery Day. They meet a couple of franchise partners. So they're doing their research and their due diligence, and so are we. But at the end of the day, you only can know someone so much until they're in your business and you start working with them on a day-to-day basis. So, sometimes you think that you've picked the perfect candidate, And then, they get in there and they get started, and there's still things that you're learning about them that, they might need extra support or help with. So I think just preparing your franchisees, but preparing yourself as well for, who is coming into the business. Because, as I said, everyone's different.
Excellent. So still thinking smaller franchise systems,
Yep.
How can they create an effective onboarding process without the extensive resources?
Yeah, I find it was always really difficult with Spud Bar because you do have to juggle kind of, you've had a lead come in, and do I stop everything I'm doing and call them and focus the next hour on them? Or do I launch this new product, or do I call this needy franchise partner back that is, needs some extra support? Or, do I look at the new marketing launch? So it's like you have to juggle all of these things that you do as, when you're in a small franchise. So it is really good to, I guess, to rely on some systems, and sometimes systems and processes do take time to create. And, when you are in a small franchise, again, you have to weigh up, like, do I create this, system for franchise recruitment, or do I launch a new, work on the new product launch? So a lot of the time, the franchise recruitment can kind of get pushed aside because of the daily operation needs. But, if you can take half a day to kind of set up your strategy, it would definitely help. So having things set up on, on different technology platforms. So I've always found HubSpot works well. Ops Central is great. And having, a good e-learning platform to help take some of the pressures off those roles that just don't exist in your business. At Spud Bar, we never had, a training department, like a learning and development department. We never had that. So we had to do that ourselves, or rely on, a really good franchise partner to go in and do training for us. So, you're not always going to get best practice straight away in small franchising businesses because it is a give and take, and you do have limited resources. But if you can lean on technology and other people within the business already, that can definitely take pressure off your role in kind of driving franchise recruitment. So I think that those three things are probably what to focus on.
Sure. And how long should the onboarding process last?
So I've always looked at onboarding as kind of the pre-onboarding, after, I guess, you've decided this person's going to enter my business. So, let's look for a site, let's start their training, hire their staff, open the store. So to me, that's about 3 months. But I think a lot of people forget that the onboarding process should be also 3 months after they've started in the business. They're completely green, and just because they've finally got through their training and opened the doors does not mean that they know how to run a business at all. So, there's, and I'll go into it later, but, there's lots of things that you should be doing in those first 3 months to help set them up for success, such as business planning, kind of pop-in visits for training, alignment, local area marketing plans, and just kind of making sure that there's really good open communication between the franchise partner and the support office. Because, once they're in the store, that they're going to feel pretty isolated, pretty alone. They've had you hold their hand for the whole time, and they're just not used to standing, on their own 2 feet with their business, that they've hired staff and there's customers, questioning things, and staff are questioning things, and they've got to order stock by themselves. And it's a really big ask for them, after 3 months, to expect that they're going to be able to do everything by themselves. So I always say the next 3 months is still part of the onboarding process. And then they can start to go into, I guess, your normal franchise partner cycle of, if it's, a weekly visit or a fortnightly visit or a monthly visit or whatever, you generally visit your stores.
Sure. Yeah. Excellent. And I guess, let's go through, and then someone else might want to, ask a couple of questions on this, but sort of what's some big mistakes that franchisors make during onboarding?
I think one of the biggest mistakes is overloading the franchisee with too much at once. We get really excited and they get really excited, and you want to give them everything you can so they're ready and prepared. And, you've got timing of the build pending. So, as soon as the build's finished, you want to be able to get them in store and open so they can start making money and get a return on their investment. So we tend to go, here's all of the information you need at once. You've got, 4 or 5 weeks to digest this, and good luck. Thanks for coming. And it's, you could be dealing with someone, and a lot of people that move to the food industry are not food people. They're not chefs. They might have worked in food, for their first job, but from there, they might be working in a bank or, in services, or, being, a stay at home for a couple of years, and they're re-entering the workforce. And they've decided to buy a franchise instead of go for a job. So dealing with people on all different levels, and it's as much as you're still again trying to understand who they are and how they learn and what they need to learn. I think we overload them with too much too fast, and we expect that if we tell them something once, then that sinks in, and that we're assuming that they understand the importance of what we've told them as well. Because we could tell them 3 things, but only one of those could be an absolute priority, and they don't know the difference. So definitely overboarding. I think part of that is the neglect with the hands-on. They've gone through their training, so of course they're going to know what to do now, and it's just not the case. Whether it's an operations training or business training. I'm meeting people that have been in businesses, for 5-10 years and never done business planning except for the first time they entered the franchise and they only did it for the bank and the requirement to enter the franchise. So I think sometimes we go, they've been here long enough that they don't need any extra support or training. And I think the same kind of happens with, franchisees entering into the system as well. We assume and we hope that they know what they're doing, and hoping that someone knows what they're doing isn't good enough when running a franchise. If you're going to come back 6 months later and kind of put them in trouble for not following process or procedure, or their franchise agreement, it's pretty hard if you haven't set them up for success in the first place. So I think, great hands-on experience, clear expectations. We always run a session of sitting down and going through the franchise agreement as well. So I think a lot of brands kind of just rely on sending out the franchise agreement. It's up to them to kind of understand, and it's up to them for their lawyers, if they get a lawyer, to give feedback on that. And then it can, I find it really good if you can sit down and go through the whole franchise agreement. At least then they've got a really good understanding of, the roles and responsibilities of what each party play. And, you can never get that, I didn't know, I never read it type of feedback. So I think, the more open and clear you are with that, that definitely helps as well. So I think, we kind of just assume that their lawyers are going to fill them in on what is in their franchise agreement, and that's just not the case.
Sure. And with respect to brand and culture and values, which is, all important things, how can the franchisors ensure the franchisees understand that when they're first coming in?
Yeah, I find this is really hard, because you can interview someone 3-4 times and you can go, oh my God, they're amazing. They're aligned with our brand values and they're great. And then they might go for a discovery day when you're not there and someone else gets a completely different view of them. Or, you know, someone might call them up to book them in for a meeting and get a completely different tone or attitude from them. So it is hard during, I guess, the recruitment process to really filter out those people that don't align to your brand just instantly. But then when you do start to onboard, you do want to take some time to go through, you know, what is expected in the brand and you know, and how they can align to that and why it's important to the business that we align to the values of the brand. We do it well. I think we do it quite well at Schnitz. I'm going to honestly, I didn't do it very well at Spud Bar because it was so just. It was so lean that it was just kind of like, okay, you need to learn operations, you need to learn business, we need to open your store, and we kind of dealt with everything else after. Whereas Schnitz, we do get to take the time, and we call it Corp Ed. So they come in for 2 days, and we get to go through all of it. I guess, you know, the brand, the business, how, profit and loss and business planning and everything. So we always do a session on what the brand values are, how do you align to them. We do some examples on, you know, what you can do every day to make sure that you align to them. We always talk about them, you know, before we start a meeting, or, you know, if it's a franchise conference or a state meeting. So we really kind of embed it into everything that we do. So it's not always just kind of like, oh, here's a session on brand value and we never talk about it again. It's like it's a live thing that goes through our business as well. Yeah.
Sorry, Helen, we've got a hand up from Jan, I think.
Yes, Jan.
Yes, I had just had a question. I totally agree with what Kate's saying about the importance of setting franchisees up for success. You know, that's absolutely critical. But there's also the other side of the coin, and that is making sure that the franchisees that you're bringing on board are the right fit, the right people for your system. Have you got any advice on how you go about doing that side of it as well?
Yeah, definitely. So with recruitment, I've brought on some people, and I think everyone in franchise recruitment can probably put their hand up and say, oh my God, what was I thinking? Or how did I miss that? Or and it's never good for yourself and for the person as well, because it's just not a right fit. And look, and I've almost done it myself. Years ago, I was looking at one of those mobile coffee franchises. And I went to the franchise expo and I was so excited. I was like 90% in before I even got to the expo, and I got there and I was talking to him. I walked away. I'm like, this is great. I love this. And then I was like, well, hang on, you know, really need to assess, is this what I want to do? And I don't drink coffee. I don't even like coffee, and I don't like early mornings. So I was like, hang on, why am I even looking at this franchise? This is not what I want to do at all. But people, you just don't know. And I think a lot of people assume that, you know, they want to get into food, or they want to, you know, at Jim's Dog Wash, like everyone wants to play with dogs. But unfortunately, they don't realise that, you know, when you're grooming a dog, like, it's probably going to poo on you. So they just don't understand, you know, what it actually takes. They just see it and it's a bit glamorous, or it's fun, or it's cute. So I think, you know, helping people, you know, do discovery days and that type of thing can really help. But Jan, to answer your question, we look, I do use the FRI onboarding recruitment process, and I do find the questions in that and how that all works really helps me, because as much as like I want to sit there and read, you know, really read, you know, say a 10-page application form, the questions I ask are never going to be as good as I think those ones that are in there. in Franchise Lab. And, you know, I've always seen questions on these kind of applications that, you know, how do you rate your communication? And the answer is like, good. It's like, well, good for who? Like, so it's like you really need to like dig into some of those answers. I do love Franchise Lab because it helps highlight some of those answers for you that kind of says, oh, you might need more information about this. So it helps kind of, raise some, not red flags, but, you know, some kind of things like, oh, you might just, you know, want to know more. So look, that definitely helps. We have with the interview process, so we have an operations interview. So first we do screening to make sure that, you know, they kind of understand the investment level, who we're looking for, you know, that they're passionate about the brand. And then we move them over into an operations interview, which is, I guess, you know, making sure our operations side of the business is comfortable with who we're bringing into the business. And along the way, everyone gets a chance to say, no, thank you. Like, these are the reasons why I don't think this person should enter the business. So then after operations, then they'll go out for a discovery day. So then we get feedback from a franchise partner. We get feedback from the BDM, so the area manager, and we kind of keep assessing them. After that, we do, I guess, more of a higher level interview, which with the GM of ops and franchising, and we kind of go in more of like the financials and, you know, when they would be ready to start and what they're looking for and that type of thing. But through the whole thing, I manage the whole process. So every touch point this person gets, I get feedback from. I get feedback from the person in the office that calls up to make the bookings for the discovery day. Like, how easy were they to make a booking? How keen, you know, were they willing to travel? You know, how did they answer the phone? Because we get people kind of, you know, answer the phone like, who's this? Who's this? And as soon as you say, oh, you know, it's Kate from Schnitz. Oh, hi, how are you? Yeah, this is great. And it's like, okay, well, you know, you know, is that how you just treat, you know, anyone, or, you know, how are you going to treat our customers? And then after that, we go out on, like, once we do find a site, we go out on site with them, with the property team. So then the property team gets to meet them as well. And through this whole process, they're still not approved. And then then they need to write a business case and put it to us on why they think that they would be good for the brand. And, you know, and we follow the Franchise Lab steps along the way. So we just make it that there's a lot of touch points, and hopefully in those touch points, when someone kind of goes, oh, I might have a red flag here, then we dive into it and we find out more information. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard to work out because you've got, you know, in the back of your mind, you want to grow. You've got these growth plans and you've got budgets you need to meet. And then you want to make sure that you bring in the right people into the business, because you don't want the operations team to come back at you and be like, oh my God, who is this person? How did they even get into the business? You want them to come back and be like, oh, this person's amazing. Like, they're doing local area marketing, you know, that they're great with customers. Their team, you know, is inspired to come to work. And yeah, it's just, yeah, it can be hard, kind of, you know, weighing up. But yeah, we all know what it's like when you bring someone into the business that isn't the right fit, and that could be years of management and challenges with that person, and they feel it too. When it's not a right fit, they feel it, and you feel it. So no one wins in that situation.
Yeah. And I like that, because what you're saying lends itself to, in my experience, continual improvement. Because if you're always asking for feedback at every section of the process, it's also helping, like, the system improve.
Oh, I feel like
person.
I feel like the recruitment and onboarding process and system, it is a living thing. Like, even at the end, and, you know, after the 6 months of onboarding and they're in their store, we send out a franchise partner survey. So then they can give us feedback on what we need to adjust and change. And then I also do that to the support office as well on a survey internally. So then they can give us feedback on what we need to adjust and change as well. Because look, you might not even know 6 months in on how someone's going to go. And, you know, we're not onboarding robots. So we're onboarding people, and people change over time. They've got stresses at home that change. You know, I've had divorces and things like that, changes of ownership. So, you know, franchising is living, and I think that process needs to be very flexible, depending on the person coming through as well.
Okay, so let's say we've done everything, profiled, everything onboarded, you know, franchisee, and everything's going well. What if they start struggling in certain places? Yeah, what should a franchisor do there?
So it does depend on how big your resources are. Like if you've got an L&D team, area managers, you know, what can you kind of put together to help and support? There's two things that I think work really well, no matter what size franchise you are. And one of those is running quarterly business reviews. So getting all your franchise together. If you're small, you can get them all together. At Spudbar, we'd have 23 in a room. At Schnitz, I do it per patch, so we do 20 at a time with the BDM, and we run through planning for the quarter. So what are their achievements going to be? We have what's called the 5 measures that matter. So it for any business, it could be like your mystery shopper results, it could be sales growth, customer complaints, employee satisfaction survey. And what we do is we measure those against kind of the patch. Then everyone has their own individual results. We have benchmarking for that. So then what we do is they start to write their action plans on what the measures that matter are. And then we get them to stand up and they read out, you know, maybe the top 3 things that they're going to implement over the next quarter. Then we have a training session. So it could be, oh, you know what, this quarter we're all going to focus on customer satisfaction. And these are the things that you get, you know, everyone talking about it. So I find that franchise partners, one, learn a lot from each other, but 2, they're more likely to listen to each other than they are to the support office. So if you can get the message across that's not coming from yourself and coming from franchise partners, the likelihood of it actually being implemented is a lot higher. So and that's why we do these in groups instead of just one-on-one business planning. And they learn so much from each other, so that, you know, they start to learn, you know, oh, well, you can close your store with only 2 staff. Why am I paying 5 staff? Because they start to have those types of conversations. And yeah, so I find business planning really good. It also, you know, it gets them all in a room, gets them talking, makes them feel less isolated. So when they do want help, they've now met someone that's a couple of suburbs away that they can call and say, oh, hey, how are you finding this? Or, you know, can I send my store manager to your store because you've got a great store manager? So there's so much collaboration in those sessions, as well as business planning, assessing your business, making goals. And then the following quarter, they come back in, they stand up and they talk about, you know, what they achieved in the past quarter. So they kind of hold each other accountable as well. And, you know, a franchise partner, it's easy for someone that's kind of struggling to sit there and push back, you know, when it's one-on-one with the franchisor and say, oh, you know, you need to help me more, this isn't working, or, you know, and kind of push some of that ownership off themselves onto you. But when you've got a whole room of franchise partners and you know, some of, you know, a lot of them are probably succeeding, it's a lot harder to be like, oh, it's you know, someone else's fault, it's not my fault. So they do take a lot more accountability in that. The second kind of system that works really well is kind of an intensive care program. So for those franchise partners that are engaged and are trying and you know, at their store every day, but they're just not making the profitability, or they're just not getting the customers, or you know, the site could have gone through, you know, a shopping centre changeover, or, you know, something might have happened in the business that kind of makes them not do so well. Or it could be that they're new and it's the first 6 months and they just haven't hit the ground running. Having an intensive care program. So all parts of the business have buy-in to this intensive care program. So the BDM will do extra visits, and it might be extra help with, you know, the business plan goals that they wrote down. Marketing will go in and help with their local area marketing plan, and they might help execute or show them how to execute some of it. So take a little bit more of a step instead of just kind of, you know, good luck with your marketing, or you need to go do it, but we don't really walk the street with them to show them how to do it. You know, we get finance involved. Okay, let's pull apart your P&L. Let's see, why are your costs higher here, and here? It could be property, reaching out to the landlord and going, can we get an abatement? You know, sales are low because, you know, there's been a lot high crime in the shopping centre. So it's like, as a business as a whole, everyone working together in the parts that they can, that can help affect some positive change to the franchise partner. But it only works with those franchise partners that are engaged and active and want to do it. Because there's a lot that kind of say all that, but then they don't visit their stores. You can never get them on the phone. They don't come to meetings. They don't come to the conference. They forget to launch the new product. They've done no online training and that type of stuff. So they're obviously different conversations. But for those ones that are really trying, I think, you know, we should match their effort.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's different types of struggles.
There is, definitely.
Sure. So, well, let's talk success.
Yep.
How do you measure success? Like what sort of metrics are you using?
So we use, I guess, the general operational metrics, you know, sales, customers, customer feedback, Google ratings, always a great one these days. I feel like we live and die by a Google rating. Mystery shop results, those types of things. As I mentioned before, the surveys from the franchise partners after they've been onboarded is a huge insight for us to see how they've actually gone through that process and how they feel coming out the other side of it. Like, do they come out going, oh my God, I'm so prepared and I'm ready and I can do this, and if I can't, I know who to call? Or do they come out and be like, oh my God, what have I done? What have I invested into? I don't know how to order stock. I don't know how to hire staff. So getting those insights really helps us work out, like, was this a successful recruitment and onboarding? And then being able to break down, what we did right or wrong. Retention rates, if you're bringing in new franchise partners and they're turning over within a year or even 2 years, but before they've really got their return on investment, it's a good indication of, you know, is something not working in the system or in the model, or are we just bringing on the wrong people that just kind of wanted to come in, make some money and leave. So that's always a good indication. And then on the flip side of that, are we multi-siting? Are the people that are coming in wanting to buy more stores within our brand? Because, you know, if someone calls me and is like, oh, hey, I want to buy, you know, a franchise, but, you know, I'm not quite sure, you know, besides the whole profitability, I'm not quite sure, what they're like or how it is. I'd be like, well, how many franchisees do they have and how many have more than one location? Because that shows if they're willing to do one and go, you know what, I love this so much, I'm going to do 2, 3, 4. It tells you that, there's something right happening in that system. But, if there's high turnover and people move on fast, I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah. Excellent. Wow. Has anyone got any questions of Kate? And I love your hat, Jan. You've got your captain's hat on now.
I'll go with a question if that's okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Kate, for the insights. Absolutely fantastic. Just as being a fellow food franchise, Kate, I'm just curious to know how long, once you've approved them, what does the training program look like at Schnitz, and how long is it for?
Yeah, so once they're approved, it moves pretty fast. So once it's approved, because as you know, you're probably just going to sign a lease and get contractors and designs and start a build. Our training is for 6 weeks for a franchise partner, and then we also have the 2 days that they come into office in the head office for. We also have another day where they come in and just do admin tasks, because we find that if they're in store doing their training for 6 weeks, they're learning a lot of new things. And then we're like, oh, hey, can you also fill out these 10 supplier forms? And we need to do direct debit, and you need to do your FPOS. And hey, have you set up your bank accounts yet? And where's the bank guarantee? But they're in store doing 8 hours a day of training. So we have certain days where they have to go do certain admin tasks as well. And we try not to do, I guess, that overloading. So 6 weeks in store, 1 admin day, 2 days in our corp ed. There's a few other kind of days in there for them to, go to site and hire staff. We hire our team leaders. So our team leaders will go to other stores to get trained. And then before the store opening, we do closed door training for staff. So we'll do a couple of days of closed door training and get the team leaders realigned before we open. And then after we open, our training team will be in there for 2 weeks after we open. And then that's when it kind of gets handed over to the BDM to keep supporting.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Jared. Anyone else got any questions? Yes,
Hi.
Richard.
I was just going to say you talked about intensive care, which is a really good term. I like that. How long do you how long do you put somebody in intensive care for before you decide whether or not to switch off the life support machine?
Yeah.
So what we hope to do is not switch off the life support. Thanks, Jared.
It's been recorded.
What we would like to do is, I guess, have a plan for intensive care, and if we know that, if they can't fulfill, I guess, the commitments of the intensive care, it might just be that they don't want to be in store 5 days a week or 6 days a week, or what it takes to build the business back up, and hire staff and that type of thing. There is, I guess, is it time to sell your store and get someone in here that is more committed to the store? Intensive care, hopefully they come out of, say, within 6 months, because fixing, building, creating a business, it's not something that you can just kind of fix in a week. So I would say 6 months of continuous kind of, these are the plans, and growing sales and building back up your profitability. After the 6 months, if we're just not there, I think that's probably a whole different conversation to have. And, and sometimes, unfortunately, some franchises just don't work, and it could be, for many different reasons. But yeah, it could be, closing a venue, handing it back to head office, selling it to someone who may not have the debt that you've got, or can have a lower return on investment, or can spend more time in the store, or can build up the local area marketing and that type of thing. But yeah, it's at that. I think that's probably the hardest part of the job is doing that part of it.
Yeah. No, it's like performance management in any setting, whether you be doubly difficult when you're performance managing, with two sets removed, if you like, from the employees that can make the difference. And I was also interested in your notions, though. Thank you very much. I should say thank you for the answer. And for my business, it's slightly different because we're not really bricks and mortar business. We're professional services. But that gives me a guideline to say, well, okay, ours would be proportionally less than that because there are fewer considerations in terms of sort of a building and that kind of thing, or a fit out. It's a computer and a telephone and a person. That's kind of how it works. I was interested in your 5 measures that matter as well. That was really good. You mentioned a couple, and forgive me, I got disrupted at that part. Would you mind just telling me what yours are again?
Yeah, sure. So for Schnitz, ours is mystery shop result.
Right.
Our food safety audit, sales growth, the employee satisfaction survey.
That's a great one.
Yeah, which is hard because you get the result once for the whole year.
Yeah.
So it sticks with you for the whole year. But what we say is that you have the whole year to be able to implement change and growth into your store. So you've got a good starting point. And so every time we do the action plans for that one, it's always like, okay, so how are we, going to incorporate the employee satisfaction survey into that one?
Okay.
And then the fifth one's our training modules. So making sure that they've completed all their training modules.
Thank you very much. Very useful. Thanks.
That's okay, no problem.
Good question, Richard. Yep, thank you. One last question before we finish up. Anything else? No. What's Abby? Thank you, Abby. Appreciate it. Well, I think on that note, thank you very much, Kate.
My pleasure.
That was very important, very, very informative. Obviously, very important part of our franchise businesses, is to onboard franchisees, and there's lots of lessons to be learnt, along the way. Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah, and you keep learning the lessons as you go all the time.
True. So thank you.
Ain't that the case?
Did manage to jump on today. I'm sure the recording will go out to everybody. My apologies for the technology glitch at the start. But, this was our last one. And from myself, from Lisa Saville, who couldn't be here today, from Backstay Memberships and Georgia, doing all the marketing and comms, we truly thank you for coming on board on this mentoring webinars that have gone so well. And I look forward to next year's. I'm doing the calendar right now. So if anyone wants to put their hands up to come on for mentoring, please do. Just get in contact with me and we'll set up a month that you can present on. And yes, as the slide says, hooroo from the gurus. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Thanks for all your effort
You
putting
guys.
these
Thanks,
sessions
Jan.
together.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done. Thank you.
Thanks, Jared.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Merry
Richard.
Christmas.
Awesome.
Bye.
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 Merry Christmas. Cheers.